Well, that's a good question. Like, what even is a native teacher, and does that even
Mhm.
matter?
For me, no, I don't think it matters at all. Yeah, if we speak about teachers, like real teachers who have classes, who teach, I don't think it's important. I think here the knowledge is important. Not just the knowledge of the language, but the knowledge of the teaching, the knowledge of methodology, right?
Right.
And we have a lot of native speakers who travel around the world, and they teach in Asia, for example, in China, in Thailand, like a lot of countries, in Vietnam, and they don't basically know how to teach. That's
Just
great that they're, yeah, that's just the native speaker, and that's it. That's cool. That's great. That's also makes sense, I guess, and it also you can have a lot of advantage there. You can take a lot of advantage from this kind of teacher. That's great. And I also, for example, I like to speak with the native speakers on some different platforms like italki, Cambly. They're not necessarily teachers, and I don't need that. I want just to speak with them, to practice, and
yeah.
that's totally fine. Yeah. So I think, that education is much more important. I would prefer to take a Russian, I don't know, Indian, French, whatever, English teacher, but if he is a professional, for me, that's what is really valuable.
Are you a native speaker of Russian?
I am, yeah, I am.
Am I a native? We've spoken Russian to each other. Am I a native speaker of Russian?
First, I thought so, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
When we spoke, you
Yeah, I've
understood.
realized that you aren't. Yeah, I've realized
Right.
that you aren't.
So, like, what are the criteria to decide if someone's a native speaker or not? Because this question comes up
Uh-huh.
sometimes. Sometimes people will watch my videos and say, "Oh, you're
Mhm.
Russian." Maybe they
Mhm.
see Kris Amerikos' name and they're like, "Oh, that's a Russian
Mhm.
thing." Maybe they, for whatever, they know I live there and they
Mhm.
fly. But so like this question comes to me a lot, like, are you a native speaker? And
Mhm.
so a lot of people's expectations of what a native speaker should be,
Mhm.
they're not exactly, they don't have a full understanding of what that really.
Mhm.
So for you, what does it mean to be a Russian native speaker?
When it's your mother tongue, when you were born in the country, right? Or when your parents are the keepers of this language. When you speak this language from the birth, you might be bilingual, yeah. And even if you, for example, you right, sometimes, yeah, you sound like native like, and sometimes when you speak Russian, you can't figure if you're Russian or not Russian. But still, sometimes as an immigrants, as a holders of this language as a second language, we got some problems to not problems, but we have something that a native speaker can figure out, something that native speaker can, when he can realize that you're not when you weren't born there, or that your parents are not the like holders of this language. So yeah, I think when you start talking this language when you are 2 or 3, yeah, so when you started to talk this language, yeah, you're a native speaker. And then even, and if you still were practicing it during the childhood, yeah, I guess you're a native speaker.
So for example, sometimes people will be like, okay, Kris, where were you born?
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Germany.
Uh-huh.
And they'll say, oh, you're German.
Can you
Like,
speak German?
no, I could never speak German. I've never had a German passport or anything like this. Both my parents are American. Just my father was in the military, so he was living in Germany at
Mm-hmm.
the time when I was born.
Mm-hmm.
So
No, obviously you're not a native speaker. Yeah, of
right.
course. You can be born in any kind of countries, but for example, right now we have a lot of people from Syria, right, and from other countries in, for example, Europe, in Germany again, right? But their parents, they're from Syria, so definitely this person, if he goes to the German school, he will be bilingual. But yeah, so he will be the native of his parents' language, and he will be the native of the German language only if he started to practice it when he was a child, like the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And you also can be the polyglot from the birth. For example, we have a reporter, Russian American reporter. Maybe you've heard about that. His name is Vladimir Posner, and he was working. His father is French, his mother is Russian, and he was born in the United States. So he's the native of three languages. He speaks perfectly in all of them.
Yeah, I've seen his interviews in English, and
Mm-hmm.
definitely, yeah, that's good that you said this about the parents. So maybe the parents is the main criteria, or maybe some children don't have parents. Maybe the people who they grew up
Mm-hmm.
with raised them.
Yeah, yeah, sure. But there are also the situation where parents, they don't talk their native language at home.
Yeah,
And they try to build their house as, for example, I don't know, American house, and they speak only English at home. So that's why the child won't be the the native
yeah,
of some other language.
yeah. We have a lot of examples of that here in Florida. We have a lot of Russian friends who have kids, and some of them try to keep Russian as the main language in the household. But the ones who are married to Americans, they
Mm-hmm.
have this issue of what's the main language in the house. And so
Mm-hmm.
in our house, because I'm also married to a Russian girl,
Uh-huh.
um, and so she just speaks Russian with our daughter, and I just speak English. And
That's amazing.
so if she asks my wife something in English, my wife will be like, "What? Say it." And yeah. And so we really saw a boost in her Russian skills when she went back to visit her grandparents in Russia.
Hmm.
Left her with the grandparents for a few days alone, and she was saying something like like go away, or
Hmm.
go away, or something like this. And Dedushka, her grandpa, thought she was saying davai, like let's go. And but she quickly learned if she wanted to get her way, she had to change. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, we have a friend who father's American, mother's Russian, and she tries to speak Russian to the little girl, but she always answers in English and says everything in English. And so like now she might understand what her mom says, but she doesn't speak Russian. And when my
Hmm.
daughter and her play together, they play in English, even though
Hmm.
they're both Russian. Uh,
Nice, nice,
so
great.
yeah, definitely, I think the household language is a big one, and I know a lot of people who live outside of English speaking countries. They might try to do that. Maybe in Russia,
Hmm.
some families that I know there,
Yeah,
the wife maybe speaks Russian with the kid, and the father speaks English at home with the kid, and they try to build English from the beginning.
yeah. We,
Um,
we we have a lot of, in Russia we have a lot of people from Caucasus, right? It's called Caucasus.
Caucasus, yeah,
Yeah, Caucasus. Yeah. So and their children, they are like completely native. Like, I mean, they're natives basically. They're native because they were born here. They speak without any accent. Their grammar is perfect. It's just natives. But their parents, they speak with a very thick accent, but they're very native-like. Very native-like. So the children, they are the native of two languages. Their language, for example, Azerbaijan language and Russian language. Yeah, definitely.
and then we have the other side of the spectrum. Like I know a guy who grew up in New York, was born in
Hmm.
New York, but his family's Russian. All his friends are Russian. Everything around him is Russian. He went to a Russian school there, and he still speaks with an accent, but
Uh-huh.
he's a native to the
Uh-huh.
United States. So,
That's cool. That's interesting, actually. Yeah.
right? So maybe the parents are the way to really decide, or
Hmm.
the people who raised the child. Maybe that's really how we decide what the native language is, because
Hmm.
it can't be about the passport. It can't be about the birthplace. It can't be all these other things that people think that it's about. There are situations where it can be different. And so yeah. And then sometimes it's also difficult to say, like, I've met American guys who their family moved to the UK when they were
Hmm.
like 9 years old. So they heard people speaking American English at home
Hmm.
and they were a kid, and then they moved to the UK and they went to school, college, maybe with UK kids. And now they come back to the States and they say some words a little differently. And so
Uh-huh.
now people here think, oh, well, he's a native speaker of English, but is he from Canada? Is he from the UK? Is he from the
Uh-huh.
States? Because now the accent is kind of mixed, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.